Well, we'll have to do the reviews. Good morning to you, Mama V.
Good morning.
You look exquisite.
Thank you. Just saddened by some of the stories in the news.
Yeah,
the hour shooting
tells you a lot
I
about
still
country.
don't get it. What are you looking for is the money. So why shoot the person?
Yeah,
really
well, as a people, we are quite bloodthirsty, aren't we? I mean, I think compared to some other cultures, I think we quite relish in the concept of taking a life. If you look at how we lynch, people suspected of crimes, even petty crimes. The worst part is when there's an accident, a road accident, perhaps when a driver runs into a pedestrian, for example.
And instead of stopping to help.
Yes, everybody descends on the driver. And in one case that I recall in Kumasi, beat the driver to death. The driver was injured as well, by the way, in this
it's sad. It's really sad.
We seem to have that culture. It's very sad. So armed robbers decide to go and steal money because they want what you have worked hard for. And they won't just take it and go away. But because they left home with a gun, they feel that they must use it before they go home. And they end up taking a life.
I am getting really worried because, this is a very familiar trend. It's either you're a prepaid seller or you're a mobile money vendor. And it's getting really worrying. I don't know what else we can do.
Yeah, we need to figure out, like we're discussing, we need to figure out how to keep cash safe for people who operate businesses that are so open to the public. You remember we had a conversation about we were trying to figure out what on earth could be done for them, and we didn't get much closer to a solution.
Yeah, I feel for the husband and then the children as well.
But generally, I have been robbed before, so I know how it is for armed robbers to be on you, and but it also shows a certain trend over the last few decades in our society in which we have not put to good use or trained our people well, because the state has not invested in the welfare of its own young people by way of the education and providing good avenues for them to work. And that is what the more developed economies do well than us. You could be a security, they have an opportunity for everybody to fit into their society. If not everybody, at least most young people or most people of employable age. And there's an adage that says that the devil finds work for idle hands. And so we have replicated that across board. Once we keep having people being marginalized, and this morning we're going to have a discussion about how the richest man's earnings for a month in Ghana is going
more
to take
than 1,000 years earnings of the poorest woman.
Of the earnings of the
Can you
poorest
imagine
woman
that?
we have in
Can
our
you
country.
imagine that?
And that shows the gap that is increasing. And it's not only about the earnings, it's about the education, it's about the livelihood, where people live, the shelter. And we don't seem to be doing anything. More so, we don't seem concerned enough.
True.
If you talk, Kojo talks, they say he talks too much. He's NDC, he's MPP today. You talk, they say you're MPP, you're NDC today. Yeah.
True.
It's sad.
Well, let's look at some of the stories in the newspapers this morning. We're just going to run through the headlines for you now.
Do you want to start? Yeah,
Go for it.
Okay then. So I have the Daily Graphic. I think Mama V has the finder, so I'll drop that. I have the Daily Graphic, the Ghanaian Times, and I'll do the Gold Street Business as well. So the Daily Graphic has no agreement on digital TV platform with Star Times. That's George Anda speaking to the Daily Graphic there. And he said pretty much the same to us when we spoke to him yesterday. Clarifying that it's an enhancement that they are doing, not taking over the platform. Also, Brimpong commends government for free SHS. Bagre Dam spillage, Ghana and Burkina Faso discuss solutions. And there's a picture here of President Akufo-Addo pinning some medal onto the chest of President Kabore of Burkina Faso. All right, in the Ghanaian Times, we have fuel price hikes. Government must intervene, and that's GPRTU speaking. A different angle to the story we did on the news earlier. 2018 Ghana Garden Flower Show opens on Thursday. That's exciting, actually. I quite like the flower show. Have you been there before?
No.
It's very nice. Just beautiful. Just a nice thing to attend and look at the beauty of nature.
Mm.
Obrimpong Weche Kojo II outlines development projects for Englishi Alata. And Ghana and Burkina Faso meet over Bagre Dam spillage. We've heard of that from the Daily Graphic. Let's see what's on the back page. 50,000 degraded land earmarked for bamboo plantation. And chiefs can't be blamed for Galamsey, Jape Kromomahine suggests. Well, I wonder what the debate will be on that particular claim. But also, the high dollar rate could cause more job losses, according to the GEA, the Ghana Employers Association. Also, Ghana's B rating is likely to increase borrowing, according to Professor Gachi. Also, the National Policy Summit is coming up, and the government is to provide status reports on flagship programs. And that is where we are. Also, the government is to hold the exchange rate still at entry ports. Dr. Baumia says so. Ghana Water Company Limited incurs 50% losses due to Galamsey. And Ghanaians lament over the latest fuel price hike. All of these in the Gold Street Business today.
Let's do the Finder newspaper and the Daily Guide. First, the Finder front page, economy in right hands. Dr. Baumia reflects on S&P credit upgrade. Finance Minister says investors are upbeat. Jamestown chief outlines multiple development projects. Kokroko Charities donate 2 incubators to Tema General Hospital. Ghana, Burkina pledge to strengthen trade ties. 7 pupils perish in fatal accident at Dumping. And that's what's on the front page of the Finder newspaper. Let's move on to the Daily Guide now. Burkina President visit Nana over Bagre Dam. 7 school kids killed in gory crash. Ewada could break silence over 40 million Ghana cedis bust cash. Jamestown Manche Hills double track. So these are the headlines, the Daily Guide newspaper.
So let's look at the Herald newspaper. Has on the front page, Finance Minister collapsing insurance companies to promote his. GRA boss exposes grand corruption. There's an attached publication of the picture of the Finance Minister. You have Angela Oforiatta, Kelly Gajekpo, GRA boss Kofinti, and also apparently a memo from the GRA Secretariat to all sector commanders of its SEPS division. AMA recruits pupils to clean public toilets. The government awaits $1.3 billion cocoa syndicated loan to rescue city. MP lies over $500 million ECG concession. And that's all on the front page of the Herald newspaper. But let's quickly move on to the Daily Dispatch newspaper. It gives you a bar chart of the latest prices of gasoline in Ghana City per litre, and spanning 11 June 2018 to the current date. Then we have NDC's national chairmanship race. You have a picture there of Ofosu Ampofo, an aspirant to the position of national chairman. Ofosu Ampofo fits regional balance strategy. That story is fully captured on the back page of the Daily Dispatch newspaper. Ewa Daku asks, how can one steal money in a statutory account like COS?
Chief of Staff.
Okay. Like Chief of Staffs. Yeah. It's a question, but I think the other question is also about the impropriety as well as the legality of what took place. How a dead rat in soup made a food chain in China lose $190 million in value. Talks about consumers and how they take lapses in trying to offer services to clients. And so, yeah, it's a repercussion there. It doesn't happen very often in our part of the world. We like loyalty, so to speak.
And in our part of the world, a dead rat in soup will just be kusimkon.
Yeah, so to speak. So we have all the other stories. But on the back page, Terminal 3 running, Run JM Run. And then we have the independent newspaper, Times Are Hard, Stop Comparisons and Fix It. Professor Jampo posted this on his Facebook page. It's found its way on the mainstream media page, front page of the independent newspaper, Professor Jampo to government. And outrage over latest hike in fuel prices, also on page 2. Can we look at all the papers now? So those will be it.
Ghanaian Observer, I think, is the last paper. Ghanaian Observer, front page. Afanyo Markin exposes Atuguba University of Education Winneba court cases not tribal. Occupy Ghana demands lifting of mining ban. MPs recalled. Ekufuado decorates Burkina Faso leader. NDC fights governments over 40.5 million Ghana cedis bust chop chop. Says cash was used to buy fuel for military. So there you have it. Front page headlines. The Ghanaian Observer newspaper. It's time for digging in.
Right, okay then. Now, there's a story here in the Gold Street Business. We don't often get this paper, but I quite like it. It seems to have taken its time to look at a story that has escaped many other newspapers, but to me is quite an important one. Ghana Water Company Limited incurs 50% losses due to Galamsey. Okay, so essentially a report by the Ghana Water Company Limited has indicated that the company in the first quarter of 2018 incurred some 50% operational losses, especially in the regions where alluvial mining is prevalent. Now, the report said that pollution of water bodies from Galamsey has impacted negatively on the operation of the Ghana Water Company, and in that, the deterioration of raw water quality has affected the quality that is abstracted. And we know about this. You know, the major complaint when the Galamsey fight began was that we are putting our water bodies in danger. But the Ghana Water Company must provide water one way or the other, and so it means they have to spend a fortune treating water that would have otherwise been a lot cleaner at source. They have to spend a fortune treating it before it becomes drinkable by humans, and that cost, that operational cost, has cost 50% loss to the company. Now, this is no small amount. If you are losing half of your money because of Galamsey, and this is half of our money, by the way, the money that is used to treat water for you, me, our children to drink, half of it is being lost because of Galamsey. I think it's a massive problem that is we are still nowhere near solving. We need to take an assessment, an evaluation of the fight so far, see where we are, whether we need to change anything, because we may continue doing the same things and continue to yield little or no results. 50% is not small. It's not small at all.
Yeah, it is not. And the Ghana Water Company has come out or come public with this information before. The thing is that there needs to be some synergy between what the commitment is by the states and the organizations or the committees or the entities that are doing the so-called enforcement, so that it has a certain bearing on the other sectors. So vis-a-vis, now we're talking about the Ghana Water Company, but even the communities along the banks of these water bodies are even the more affected ones. But apart from just being affected by not getting inadequate water, it affects their health, because there's mercury or other chemicals found in that. That also has an effect on the overall national health bill, because in the US, in the UK, they have an estimation of how much they're likely to spend on chronic diseases in the next 10 years, 50 years, etc. So they try to be proactive by making sure that they cut down on the consumption of either fat or fast foods or junk food, etc., or look at how they can give money to the pharmaceutical sector to come out with vaccines for other chronic ailments, etc. We don't do that. We, Black Africa, we live like Stone Age. God has given us a grace. So once we don't do these calculations, it means that everything is just going down the drain, the reverse.
Indeed, indeed. I mean, do you have a poly tank at home? Well, that's just one brand of water tank.
I do. I have a smaller one.
You have a water tank at home.
I've got 3 actually.
You've got 3, right? So I mean, imagine that somebody is, first of all, doing something illegal, but as a result of what they are doing, they keep poisoning your water tank, you know, and you're unable to stop them. It's hard to explain. We need to prioritize this above anything else. This is water. This is water. It's life. I don't even think free SHS is as important as water. And so maybe we need to rejig our priorities and throw more at the problem. You know, I don't think, what's the name of the operation that we...
Which one's Operation Vanguard?
Operation Vanguard. It's a start. But clearly, if we're still losing 50% of our revenue because we're having to spend too much money treating the water, then perhaps progress is not fast enough and we need to add more.
All right, let's. I'm picking the story in the Daily Guide newspaper because it's one that we've been talking about. Iwada could break silence over 40 million Ghana cedis bust cash. So the paper says that a former managing director of the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Company, BOST, under the previous Mahama administration, Kingsley Kwame Iwada, has refuted claims that he's being pursued by the Economic and Organized Crime Organization. He denied reports that a warrant had been issued for his arrests. Quote, "Iyoko is not and cannot be chasing me since they know of my whereabouts," unquote, he said in a statement yesterday, insisting, quote, "So the story that Iyoko is chasing me is probably false," unquote. He also debunked claims that he supervised the illegal transfer of huge sums into an account held by the Chief of Staff under the Mahama presidency. Somewhere in the story, he explains how they started supplying fuel directly to the army. Later on, realizing, I think after 6 or 7 months, that they couldn't do that because they were not an OMC and could not supply the military directly, they decided to do so via GOIL and another.
What has that got to do with the Chief of Staff?
So what has that got to do with the Chief of Staff, you're asking?
I think the conversation around this is that...
which are the accounts?
Yeah.
The accounts and the
what
money
has that got to
like?
do with sending money to the Chief of Staff and to an account?
So he's explaining what the money was
we do
used
understand
for.
all the explanations that have been given. And yesterday, or before the close of the news day, I heard the Member of Parliament for Bongo, Edward Bawa also. He was a communication consultant at the ministry at the time.
Seeking to give the same sort of explanation.
But I think we have to be truthful. There's no justification for this. We're not saying that a wrong has been perpetrated in the illegal siphoning of money from an account because the account was at the Bank of Ghana. No, that's not what we're saying. We're talking about the processes that were used. Somebody took a decision unilaterally. That contravenes the Financial Management Act that we have. It contravenes the other.
Has that been established?
Yes, because
okay, so we know what the law is.
We cannot.
The law
take money like
says
that.
when a state-owned institution generates revenue, this is how you use the revenue, or this is what you can do with it. You take what you need to pay for your expenses, the rest goes into the consolidated fund. If you are going to do anything else, apart from what I've just said, with the money, you must have authorization from the Minister of Finance.
Okay, so my question is, do we know if this happened?
What happened?
Authorization.
Well, if there was authorization, that's what Iwadakun would have been saying, rather than spinning us a yarn about fuel.
Well, so you're speculating.
No, we're not speculating. We're saying that he has been asked.
There's authorization, but wrong authorization.
No, he has been asked the
from
question.
the office of the Chief of Staff.
No,
I tell you what.
Mama B, he has been asked the question, what happened? And that's the answer he gave. Did he say that the Minister of Finance gave him authorization?
Well, the fact that he didn't say it, you cannot conclude based on that.
Well, what should we conclude based on?
I get it.
You've asked someone a question.
But I'm just saying
he
that...
He has given you an answer, and you don't want to conclude based on that answer.
The person issues a statement. The person issues a statement in response to what is being said. Yes, this is a statement. No, this was a statement. Statement that the story says he issued. So they're couching their story out of that. So he's responding to a few things. I'm just saying that we're not sure of the processes in terms of what was done and what was not done. For sure. Can you say that for sure?
Well, okay.
Can you say that as it has been established?
I can say that I have information to the contrary.
Okay.
Okay. But
if you can run with it,
that's
then
all
go
I can
for
say.
it.
That's all I can say.
I'm just saying that we need more.
Yeah, well,
we need more in terms of the processes and what was done and what was not done.
You remember yesterday when this came up, I said that I know a little bit about the background of this, and that someone highly placed in the former presidency explained to me the reason why this arrangement was made, and that it stemmed from the fact that the finance minister, Seth Tekwe, in the previous year had squeezed and cut down their funding through the budget because they had overrun the budget the year before. So
I get that.
So as a result of that, they made this arrangement. So tell me, how does that line up against this story of fuel? And that this was, and that they actually, and you see, it goes even further. It says they levied a certain 5 pesos per liter or whatever on the fuel they were selling. And then they took that money and placed it in an account at the Chief of Staff's office. Why the Chief of Staff's office? What has this got to do with the Chief of Staff? Okay, so what I'm saying is that this raises more questions than answers.
And I totally agree with you. Because, for instance, you cannot levy without Parliament's approval.
Thank you.
Nobody has, no institution can say pay more or we're keeping this without Parliament giving you that approval. So,
and the explanation he's giving is that the military owed them. The military was unable to pay for the fuel they were providing them. So you imagine you have a shop and I'm your customer and I owe you money. I can't pay. And you want to solve the problem. And what you decide to do is that you increase the price of your products to your other customers so that whatever extra you make on top, you use it to pay my debt. I'm your customer and I owe you. Why are you interested in spending your money to pay my debt? I don't get it.
Okay, my take and my argument about...
You totally disagree, yes.
My take and my argument on all of this is that since we began the Fourth Republic, I don't care what happened during the military regimes, since we began the Fourth Republic, you look at proceedings at the Public Accounts Committee indicates that we have heads of institutions, political heads, who take decisions that flout due regulations of our country. And this is one of them. This is unprocedural, simple as that. And
you've established that?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
If and
a state institution has taken its
and my thing is nobody is accusing the Chief of
Staff's office.
Nobody is accusing the Chief of Staff at the time, Julius Debra, because it's a public account. If somebody wanted to steal, they would have hidden it.
I thought we're even talking about the office, aren't we?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So it's not about someone stealing money.
No, it's about the procedures that were used and whether it was right.
I am just saying that if it's been established, then you can run with it. But I'm cautious because I feel there are still questions that has not been answered in terms
even then, if the finance minister had given an approval, why should the finance minister give an approval of supply of fuel by bus through GOIL?
The Chief of Staff office,
and not the Ministry of the Interior, not the Ministry of Defense.
I don't get it. Minister had approved.
Yes.
So you don't know.
So, Mama B,
that's what I'm saying. In a scenario where even if the finance minister,
even if the finance minister has approved it, there are questions to be answered. So if we sit here and say there are questions to be answered, we're not wrong.
But that's all we are saying. I'm just saying that don't say it as if it's the facts. It's been established.
There are questions to be answered.
No. The position. Oh, you're taking me back now. You're just. I'm not going to fall for that.
You're not taking the bait. You're not taking the bait. All right. Okay. What else have we got? What other details?
I think the school children who were killed is in that car crash is also one of the stories. It's actually in a couple of the newspapers, but let me pick the angle of the Finder newspaper. And it's on page 8. It's also in the Daily Guide, actually. They bring pictures on the front page of the paper, but I choose to do the Finder on page 8. It says, 7 pupils of Learners Bridge Academy School at Dompim in the Takwan Swai municipality have been confirmed dead in a fatal accident involving a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter bus and a tipper truck. The crash occurred on Monday, September 17, at 16:30 hours at Dompim. A police source who confirmed the incident to the Ghana News Agency said the deceased are between the ages of 3 and 14 years. Clement Odru, a 44-year-old driver of the Mercedes-Benz Sprinter bus, they give the registration number. On the Takrady Road, was carrying about 50 pupils and teachers on board whilst the tipper truck, with also they give details of that, belonging to Shalonis Company Limited, was heading towards Takrady with Samuel J44 as the driver. On reaching a curve in between Dumping and Bonsaso, the Mercedes-Benz Sprinter driver allegedly lost control and veered off its lane and collided head-on with a truck. The victims, who sustained various degrees of injuries, were sent to the Agona Nkwanta and several other hospitals. I think the updates is that some had been carried to the 37 military hospital or Kolibu, one of the two. Yeah.
And if you're brought from Ifya Nkwanta to 37, it means that it's as serious as it could get.
Yeah. It's sad.
But,
really, really,
but that
sad.
road, the watchword is caution when you're driving through the eastern region roads, because they're highways, but they're very meandering. You go in between, you're going through Takrady to the rest. So you have to be cautious when you're driving, because the likelihood that you're in a curve going to collide with an oncoming vehicle, it's pretty high. And I don't know why we don't seem to be cautious on the road.
So 6 and a teacher are now at the 37 military hospital, and then Ifya Nkwanta.
Okay.
I hope that they recover.
Yeah,
seriously.
Yesterday I cited the post by Professor Jampo, and Professor Jampo is a senior lecturer, political science department of the University of Ghana. Also has been a fellow of IE. I don't know whether he still is, but works a lot with civil society, comments a lot on political issues. And he had this post, it's found its way on the front page of the Independent. It says, "Times are hard, stop comparisons and fix it." And if you look at quotes, he says, when people are suffering, you don't tell them that you are better managers than the NDC. Comparing your performance to a regime that suffered such a monumental defeat in a tacit admission of failure and mediocrity. Then he goes on that appointees and those around the corridors of power who are fully catered for by the state with the taxpayers' money may not appreciate this. Also, note that some partisans sycophants who are complaining about hardships behind the scenes are refusing to take their feelings public. And so he says that government needs to accept that times are hard and explain succinctly the causes to Ghanaians. And so government needs to communicate the measures that have been put in place whose fruitful results may be experienced later. And yesterday we talked about how it was important for the right sort of communication words that need to be coming from government appointees, because often people are made to, or people are tagged to be anti-government when they may be experiencing and expressing genuine concerns on the ground. And we talked about
how politics
and we talked about how the Bank of Ghana in its monetary policy report, especially for this year, has given us fine figures as far as the macroeconomic indicators are, and they are good. The macroeconomic indicators is what is being monitored by Standards and Poor, Fitch, etc., and they'll give good ratings. But the
from
thing
B minus to B.
If we look at that story, which is indicating that a man's earnings, who is the richest in Ghana for a month, could be that of 1,000 years earnings of a woman, the poorest in Ghana. That's a problem, and it shows that there's a disparity. Even more so, we have the larger number of the population who are in that gap of not having enough. And so when there's a pinch or a problem in the economy, the larger section of the population will feel it more. But they don't have the voice. They can't buy data to go on Facebook. They can't have access to vehicles and drive to Accra, etc. And they are the most affected.
So, you know, the poorest 10% of Ghanaians share only 2% of total consumption. Can you imagine that?
Okay, so just before we go, this is important because we've been dealing with this story, the Star Times matter. So George Anda in the Daily Graphic, the headline is "No Agreement on Digital TV Platform with Star Times." George Anda continues to seek to clarify the arrangement between Government of Ghana and Star Times. And he's quite adamant here. He is saying that, look, the Star Times transmission is totally separate from the national digital terrestrial television transmission. They, Star Times, are not running it on the national digital television transmission. So he says that what the Star Times are doing in the communities, you know, the 300 communities, is something that they themselves
Yes, that's their own
network.
strategy.
That's right.
To get
So-
to penetrate and to get.
But
yeah.
But they have been
So-
assisted by the state.
So are we not paying for it?
It's
Are we
so
not-
it's
and-
Doesn't
we are
it crowd
borrowing-
out local players then?
Okay, more importantly, are we not borrowing money to pay for it? Isn't this what we are taking the Exim facility to pay
that's
for?
for the DTT.
No, we're not.
But they,
That's-
but he
they
says,
are doing this on their
he
own.
says Star Times are not involved in DTT.
I thought they said
That's what he's saying.
I thought they said they were
Government has
beginning
dismissed-
conversations with
To
them.
have
It's not like we have a
for them
contract
to take
with
care of
them,
the upgrade
but
of some extra
conversations
25.
because KNet
Yeah.
couldn't or
I see.
Has the 40.
KNet is done with what was given them, but
Right.
now
Then-
they've realized that we need to expand, and so we need a
Then-
bigger brother to
then
do that.
let me read
and
a
Star
quote to
Times
you.
has got the capacity to do that.
Let me read a quote from
Please do.
Georganda to you. If Star Times is allowed to control Ghana's digital transmission infrastructure and the satellite space in the name of digital migration, Ghana would have virtually submitted its broadcast space to Chinese control.
This is who
He
talking.
acknowledges that.
Georganda.
But that's a code that was initially coming from
that's a giver
Giba.
position.
This is Georganda.
Okay, well.
All right. He says there is no element of accuracy in there. It is just misinformation. People may have their various reasons and their personal interests why they will peddle out such untruth.
What I do know, Kojo, is that we have to keep an eye on this because narrations
Yo.
could be changing every day and every
Yo.
minute.
We are all here.
We don't have to sleep, the moment we do.
Anyway, but the Star Times thing that they are doing in communities, it will come with things like projector screens in village squares and all that.
not
In
even-
Ghana today.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
In
not
Ghana
just-
today.
and
Where
it's
they
not
will be
just in Ghana.
broadcasting their
It's in
content
Rwanda,
to these
South Africa,
10,000
they've got-
communities
yeah.
across Africa,
Yeah.
where Star Times, a Chinese company, will be
Yeah.
broadcasting their content
Yeah.
to these people of, who unfortunately
I
are in the
think-
rural areas,
I think
have
the
less
points-
exposure and education than the rest of us.
Ni hao, ni hao, ni hao.
I think the point where we didn't ask a lot of questions
Ni hao,
and we are
ni
here
hao.
is when they were bringing the equipment and we gave them all those exemptions. Parliament passed that and we didn't ask questions. That's the problem.
Apparently
because
it
they
was
don't
done
do
at
that to
committee
private
level.
businesses in Ghana.
Apparently,
So
it
why
was
do you
done
do
at
that?
committee level, which is why we didn't hear of it. Yeah, because we asked it's Sam George, who is on the communications committee, about it. He said their committee has not passed any such thing. It may be the finance committee, but their committee has not passed any such exemptions.
This is not the end of the story.
All right,
Can't be.
so please, we have to take a break. We have the latest from the Champions League matches that took place, the last
I'm going
roundup
with
of the
Barca.
matches.
No Manchester United in my life. It's Barca all the way.
You have been cured.
After sports, we bring you AM Business.